New intro music, guys. I did not know. Okay, so it's been a minute, guys. It's been a minute for the Miller Park Minute. We are back. It's the first podcast in a while, unless you listen to that boring episode about our fantasy baseball draft where I didn't know how to operate my software, and I apparently still don't know how to operate my software because apparently there's new music for the 30-second intro. So we have a new theme song by default. They just gave it to us. We are sitting here alongside our good friend, longtime staple of our show every year, Peter Go, one half of probably one of the best Brewers podcasts that we've had on air in years, which unfortunately it's no longer with us. Our good friend has passed. And I did speak to Peter before, and it sounds like unfortunately there may not be a resurrection anytime soon.
I won't
sound right?
I won't rule it out. I'll say it's never over, but it sure was a fun ride. I appreciate it, and it was always fun, and is always fun to make a stop here at the Miller Park Minute. And Eric, we had you on our show a couple of times as well. And for those that aren't familiar, my other half of the podcast host, my brother, of course, David, landed a job as a news reporter, and so with that came the realization that, you know what, the Barrel Banter, although it was a lot of fun, did not unfortunately pay the bills for either of us. And that was the mark to say, okay, we probably got to take a pause here. And like I said, I won't ever rule it out. And I appreciate the kind words. David and I laugh at listening to some of our old episodes, but it was a whole lot of fun covering the Brewers. And so when I get a chance to do that, even just for an episode here today, couldn't pass it up.
And I appreciate you. I mean, you guys have always been great, and we've always had fun banter back and forth. And it's I think early on, I don't know who approached who. I don't know if it was you and I talked first or David and I talked first, but we a couple of years ago we got together. I mean, it's been a few years.
Yeah, that's got to be
we started doing this.
Maybe 2021, if I had to guess. I'm guessing post COVID. I feel like you said, every year, maybe sometimes a couple of times, we enjoyed coming on, and yeah, it's probably been at least 4 years or so since we got connected, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I've always had a blast with you guys, so that's why I wish David was here. David, if you do listen to this, which I'm sure you will, you're welcome anytime. Send me a direct message and I will get you on. And you are sorely missed. It was like a weekly tradition. You guys had a time slot to when I would get in my car and turn you guys on. And it was just that's where you were. That's where you lived every week. And then I go back and listen to old episodes sometimes just for the information, because you guys put out such great content. David with his statistical reference brain and some of the players and things like that, and you guys always just had a good conversation, good commentary. So just wanted to say that.
Appreciate that. And we did have some fans come out and show some support as we closed up shop, which we appreciated. And once in a while, Dave and I looked at each other and we went, "Oh, people do listen to us once in a while." So that was a fun realization too. You know, we'd hear from our mom, once in a while. So we knew at least our mom was listening to the show. But it was reaffirming to hear from others that they did indeed enjoy it. And yeah, I don't take that lightly. Everybody's got important things to do in their day, and even just throwing AirPods on to take some time to listen to some Brewer talk, we don't take that for granted. And again, we had a really, really fun run doing it.
Well, with that being said, let's move on. You guys did a great job. We don't want to utilize it anymore because there's potential. I feel it. I felt like, okay, so not to spoil the last episode. If anyone hasn't listened, it's been 2 months. So if you haven't listened to their last episode, I felt like there was maybe a grooming of a future post a David replacement in the making there. In that last moment.
Yeah, that's I won't rule it out. And as listeners could confirm, he's already at least half as good as David, So yeah,
yes.
he doesn't have too far to go. No. Yes, go check out our last episode. if you didn't. We reposted a couple of our interviews through the years, so go check those out if you have interest. Of course, we had lots of good Brewers names on there. But yes, my son was answering the trivia question. He's a few years out from hosting a podcast at 2.5. He just turned 2.5 this month, so he's got a little bit of time, I think, before he turns the mic on. But yeah, we won't rule it out. Who knows? Jackson Churio might be playing still by the time he's covering it. I won't rule that out. That's for sure.
No, for sure. That's you look at and we'll take a moment here before I get into the rest of the podcast and the actual conversation of the podcast. We do new episodes daily. Yes, we're coming back daily. I know it's been forever. Life happened. I've been busy. It is what it is sometimes. Amazon is a place you can listen. iHeartRadio, CastBox, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts. I cut that short. Live nightly. If you want to join the live sessions, this is actually not live. I didn't do that. Whoops. You can join Facebook, join us on Twitter. And then we do live sessions. We're coming back. I might change the time on Saturday to 3. We also still have the SeatGeek code if you want to save money on some Brewers tickets. Opening day is upon us. Miller Park Minute is the SeatGeek code. And then you can always go over to the patreon.com/Miller Park Minute. All right. We paid the bills. Funny, right? So first there's a lot of Brewer stuff that I haven't. I mean, I talked about Bob a little bit. I've talked about some other things, along the way, but I kind of missed a few weeks. So I just want to get your kind of thoughts on the passing of Bob and what this really means for Brewers fandom. And how does it change the experience for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was like I said, and it's well documented now on this episode that unfortunately this gig doesn't pay the bills. So on my full-time role as a financial planner, I was talking to one of my clients in the last month, and he was talking about how he's a big Brewers fan, and he said, I bought the subscription, to watch the games this year. And I was like, oh, really? Because I knew he was a big fan, and I was like, oh, did you, how many games a year did you typically watch in the past? He's like, I didn't really watch games much. He's like, all on the radio. He's like, but now that you've gone, he's like, I'm switching to TV. And I was like, wow, that's the impact he had. We all know the impact that he had. But this guy, who's a diehard Brewers fan, has been for his whole life, grew up with it, grew up listening to Bob Uecker. And so there wasn't really a question for him. It was just, if I'm going to watch or follow or listen to a Brewers game, I'm doing it on the radio because that's where Uecker is. And now that Uecker's gone, he's going to be switching to TV. I just found that, really interesting to just.
That's shocking, to be honest with you. That really is, because, as people, we're visual creatures, and I guess the visualization but he goes so much into story too, though. I guess. The voice of Bob Uecker is classic, no matter what.
Yeah, it's a different experience, right? If you're watching a game, it's definitely different than listening to the radio, but listening to the radio when Uecker was calling the game was totally different, and it's just a different experience. I think it's you could call it maybe more relaxing because of those, like you said, those stories, and he was just always free flowing and so easy to listen to. So that to me summed up just how big of an impact, specifically, like you said, from Brewers fandom. It'll be a theme, I think, throughout the year for good reason. But we saw the outpouring across not just Brewers Nation, but across the country, the impact that he had on baseball and entertainment in general. Being myself, as young as I am, I missed the old days of Bob Uecker and him more so in the national spotlight, but that was more brought forward again upon his passing, just realizing he was certainly more to the world than just Milwaukee. And Milwaukee certainly a special place in the hearts of Milwaukee.
I just watched WrestleMania 3, and Bob Uecker had this whole gimmick throughout the WrestleMania 3, and he was chasing around trying to find Vanna White. It was just the funniest, how Bob delivers things and his humor. Yeah. It was just the funniest thing on the planet. And I was like, I forgot completely about this. And then, I heard them mention Bob Uecker in the beginning, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. This is the one that he was in. And then there was another one that I had forgot he did. And maybe you watch this cartoon now with your kid, the Puppy Dog Pals. Actually, he was featured in an episode as like a legendary baseball player. And it was really cute, like that Disney cartoon. I don't know if that's even still on the air, but
I didn't know. I haven't seen that. I will have to check that out. That's a Bobby Drew reference I've not heard of.
I'm literally singing the song in my head right now. Bingo and Rolly, couple of puppies. Yep, it's called Puppy Dog Pals. Disney, I think. It's been a couple years, but good show. Good show. I enjoyed the many hours of Puppy Dog Pals. That and the what are the dogs with all the different the Paw Patrol?
Paw Patrol. Yep, that one's still
That's
running
still a
strong.
thing, right?
That's still a thing. Yep, I can confirm that.
Okay, you've seen that show, huh?
Yep.
All right, we're getting off base here. That's okay though. We're having fun. How do you feel? I'm gonna just cover a little news while we're talking. How do you feel about this? What was your take on the Mark Canna trade? I was really kind of confused.
Yeah, I was. I mean, there's definitely a part of me that was just kind of bummed. I just wanted to see him back. Had good memories of his brief stint in Milwaukee. Veteran guy, seemed like couldn't hurt to have in the clubhouse either. So I was hoping he'd make the team. A little bit surprised by that. I mean, it seems like for the most part, Brewers are pretty clear with what their plan is with position players. Vinny Capra after his really, really good spring, and Isaac Collins will be making the team. I don't know. I don't know exactly. The Brewers obviously see something there that they didn't see in Canna. Canna, of course, was the opposite of Vinny Capra in the spring. Was not very productive offensively, and so that certainly didn't help his case. But yeah, I wouldn't have mind seeing Mark Canna on the roster. I seemed to be a really good clubhouse guy, and like I said, certainly just had good memories of his partial year with the Brewers a couple of years back.
So obviously that leads way to the other news and players that we're getting into the topic of. They released Manuel Margot, which okay, I mean that happens. And Caleb Durbin was optioned, so I think that, like you said, paves way for what the plan is going forward.
Yeah, the Caleb Durbin one. I mean, of course, he was talked about a fair amount when the trade happened. That he was, probably the likely guy at third base if the Brewers didn't add anybody. And if you would have told me the Brewers didn't add anyone and he wouldn't have made the roster, I would have been pretty surprised to hear that, especially because Tyler Black's also not going to be on the roster. So Oliver Dunn seems to be the starting third baseman, which there's definitely a lot of me that is very much concerned by that. And I think that's pretty well-founded. But at the same time, Pat Murphy's been certainly talking him up all spring. And I don't know. I'm not going to rule it out. I felt like the Bryce Terang, conversation leading up to the 2024 season where Murph was saying, hey, look out, he's going to take a big step forward. And we saw a leap forward. So I'm not going to rule it out because I've been proven wrong before by Pat Murphy. And I don't know, maybe we see it happen again. I'm not saying that even best case Oliver Dunn's our starting third baseman every day this whole season, but I don't know. Maybe he ends up being a guy who can be a platoon guy at third base. I don't know.
And this is interesting. So this is, and I don't know how up to date. So it seems like it's changed a little bit because of some of the players listed here, but the official depth chart lists it as Ollie Dunn, Durbin, who's obviously in the minors, so that one doesn't count, Vinny Capra, and then Sal Frelick. I thought we were done totally with that Sal Frelick thing, but I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I think we probably are, barring something unforeseen,
like emergency, maybe. I could see that happening.
He'd definitely be probably one of the better fifth infielders. When you bring the outfielder in the ninth inning, solid guy to go man up the middle. But with how good he was last year, Gold Glover in right field, it doesn't take a GM to tell you it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to take a light hitting right fielder who's a Gold Glover and go move him to third. There's just not a lot of sense there. Besides the fact that the Brewers have a plethora of offensive talent. in the outfield, as opposed to, I wouldn't call Oliver Dunn a plethora of offensive talent at third base, but we'll see what he can do. Like I said, I'm not going to rule him out when Murph's talking him up as much as he has this spring.
And I don't know if it's an option scenario. I'm not very good at figuring out how many options each player has left. David always seemed to know how many options. I don't know where he got that info because I've looked and I can't see it. But especially with Montesterio, I feel like he would have been, but then they kept oh my gosh, the Rule 5 guy. Oh my god, I just lost it. Who was the Rule 5 guy?
Talking about Isaac on the offensive side?
The pitcher.
Oh, Connor Thomas, yeah.
Yes, they kept him in lieu of. Gosh, I totally lost that brain power apparently. In lieu of like having that extra third baseman, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part we'll see. Yeah, I think for the most part, I think the roster's pretty set on both sides of the ball for the most part. But yeah, Andrew Monasterio, we kind of know what we're going to get from him.
Right.
We saw, we kind of saw him peak out where he was like a decent player for a time, but he's more or less just going to be, a utility guy, bench depth piece who's not going to make a big impact. So I don't know. I don't know if Oliver Dunn's going to be a lot better than that. I don't really see him being much worse. So I'm okay with them giving him the chance over Monasterio and seeing what he can do. But you certainly can't have – the Brewers are too good of a team. They've got too much talent, too much potential this year to have a gaping hole at third base. So if that's evident, and Tyler Black not making the team is just another, I think, confirmation that the Brewers think he's incapable of playing third base. Because if he was capable of playing third base, he's got nothing left to prove in AAA. There's no reason he shouldn't be on the opening day roster. If he could man third base at an even, okay level, I'm guessing it's just not there.
Moving on. So we're going off the Adam McCalvy article. I think he always has a good kind of grasp on it. William Contreras and Eric Haas. I think that goes without saying. You're going to see William Contreras play the majority of the games. And if he's not catching, he's probably going to be DHing. Yeah. Is that fair? I mean, I think he's proven he doesn't want to not play. So
I was going to say him and Adames, I know last year were upset when Murphy didn't have him in the lineup occasionally. So yeah, I think if he can be out there, he should be. And Eric Haas is not a bad backup catcher to start a few games throughout the year, sprinkled in, give Contreras a day off of his knees and just let him DH. I mean, we don't really have a full-time DH. So that spot's going to be rotating. Yelich will probably take the most at-bats there, I would guess. But it's going to be a rotating DH. So you should have definitely some days to give Contreras time off his knees. But, yeah, Contreras has been very durable and just wanting to be out there as many at-bats as he can get.
And just a sampling. I mean, how can you not play a guy that had a 281 average, 365 OBP, and an 831 OPS last year? I mean, he's one of the best in the league, and he doesn't plan on stopping. I heard something that he gets there like before anyone, basically, as far as like any kind of position player. He's already there working out at like 5 a.m. I might have heard that from the Barrel Banter. I don't know. Did you guys talk about that?
I don't know. I don't. Who knows? David always had
random
stuff randomly. Yeah. So he could have had that, but it wouldn't shock me. I mean, catchers have such a hard job. We all know that. That's why they get the appreciation that they get, because they've got to do everything that every other hitter has to do to get ready to hit and develop an entire game plan for calling games and work on all the same things that every other hitter has to, but also maintain the physicality of being able to catch a 162 game season, which is crazy. We had Vinny Rotino on our show a while back, and I remember him talking about just spending hours stretching when he was trying to transition to catch, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, the level of effort and time that you've got to put into that when you're catching, you're doing almost twice as much as everybody else.
And then you look at, I mean, in case emergency break glass, you got Jefferson, Kiro waiting in the wings. So I mean,
Yeah,
if all goes bad, bring him up, and he'll still probably be brought up sometime at some point, anyways. I feel
yeah.
like it's his time.
It's a good problem to have Contreras and Caro. Of course, Caro had kind of a lost season last year with the injury, but it's certainly a good problem to have. You can't have too much catching depth or talent, and the Brewers look like they could have two long-term starting catchers in Contreras and Caro, and I think they'll gladly figure that out when Caro's ready, and whether that's this year or next year. But I think you're right. I think he's definitely on the doorstep.
I saw Cal Riley got a deal earlier today. He got a pretty good size extension with the Mariners, and I was thinking, gosh, is that something we could do? And then I'm like, well, we've got a hot prospect in the wings, so are we really going to do that? Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. I guess keep our fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go over first base. First base depth chart. Reese, then Bowers. I'm going to say this personally. I am really excited for Reese. I think Reese is going to hit a new level in 2025.
New level, like better than when he was with the Phillies.
Yeah, I think he's going to come out because look, it's a contract year for him, isn't it? We only signed him through this year. So if he wants to continue to play, he has got to put up or shut up. And I don't think that he was that like a particular podcaster that I'm not going to name names on and not pick on today's episode, but I will pick on him in future episodes. So stay tuned for that. He's not getting any younger. The guy's a free agent. He's probably going to want a couple year deal. He's got cash in. I mean, 722 OPS is not a bad OPS. Batted 214 though, so I mean, What does that say?
Yeah, that's where I think he's got to improve. The power. He could certainly have a little bit more power. He had 26 bombs last year, which isn't bad. He hit 30 in 2022 prior to the injury year. His best year was 34 back in 2018, but consistently, is a guy who you could probably expect to hit in the mid-20s, which is what he did last year for the Brewers. So if he puts up 26 home runs, I think that's an okay outcome this year. I'm with you. I think we could see at least a half step forward from him compared to last year if his first year back injury. To me, the bigger one is if he can get that batting average back up because he was hitting in like the 240, 250 range with the Phillies. That's a huge difference, far cry from 214. So even if he doesn't go back and hit 250, but he's hitting 235, that makes a difference in a Brewers lineup that I still think is quite formidable, even without Willy Adames.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think okay, you look at it. I know spring numbers don't tell you a ton, but I think you can show by a good spring. I mean, just in spring, he had 262, 392, and a 1.082 OPS. So I know that's limited bats, certain scenarios. I understand that everybody's getting warm, but still 6 home runs, 42 at bats. It's not terrible.
It's not. It beats playing poorly in spring and limping into the season. So
see,
that's kind of the same as Churio.
This is the same thing we can say. We can always say well, he had a bad spring. Oh, he had a really good spring though. Right. So it's like it's that double-sided coin that we can get into in this world here. All right, second base. No shadow of a doubt. I'm sorry. There was no chance he was getting moved. I do not think that Bryce Turang was getting moved. Did you?
It made a ton of sense to me to keep him right there. I don't see why you do shift him. He was outstanding defensively at second. We know Ortiz can play defense at short. I'm excited to see them up the middle. I mean, Adames and Turang were really good, but I think Turang and Ortiz really good as well. Ortiz got a couple years on Adames too, and I think they're going to be really good up the middle. That'll be fun to see the two of them playing together. And I think it's reasonable to expect a similar year from Turang. I don't know that I'm necessarily expecting a a big step forward. Hopefully, maybe a little bit more consistency than we saw him strike gold in the first half and then really cool off the second half. Be nice to just see a little bit more of a consistent year from him, but probably I think it's reasonable to expect a similar year, and a similar year is a really solid player to have in the lineup. You can put him in the back end of your lineup. He can wreak some havoc on the bases when he's there, and he's going to play outstanding defense at second. Like you said, it's pretty straightforward at second with Terang, and shortstop's not all that different in the security that Joey Ortiz has manning that position.
Right. And I think that brings us back to and you guys kind of reminisce. That's what I loved when you guys reminisced about the good old days, because you're a little bit younger than I am.
Yeah.
And that was kind of your era, but the Ricky Weeks, JJ Hardy era.
Yeah.
Two young guys in the middle. And that's just fun baseball right there.
It is. I love me some good up the middle defense.
All right, third, we've already talked about Ollie Dunn. Let's go into the outfield here. So I think this was kind of already preset before we even started, barring any kind of injury. I said it the other night on stream when we were doing our fantasy baseball draft, and I am officially declaring it over in this episode. Going forward, I will no longer say the phrase Christian Yelich is fucking back, baby. All right, we're done with that statement. It's done. It's over. Sorry for the curse word, but he's back, and that's it. Christian Yelich going to be DH and probably more just with the advanced age, I'm assuming. We got a lot more youth out there in that outfield, so
yeah, we do, and this is a really good outfield. I really think it is. You mentioned Yelich, David, and I. You probably know every offseason we joked it was consistent through the entire podcast whether Christian Yelich was going to be back the next year, and we still jokingly had the comment this offseason because it's still a question. I know you're saying there's the answer, and I'm certainly holding on to hope that that's going to be the case, and I think it will be. But this is a really good outfield. You got to speak it into
existence sometimes.
Exactly. So. You have to. So you've got Christian Yelich, and of course we've got Churio. We'll get to Churio, but I don't think you can sleep on Sal Frelick and Garrett Mitchell. I've been kind of a doubter of Garrett Mitchell until last year, and he showed me like there's definitely a lot of talent there. When he was on the field, he was playing like an all-star outfielder. We saw what he did in the playoffs, of course, the big home run. Like, there's a chance that if we see even a player like that, you've got the potential of having 3 all-star caliber outfielders in Churio, Yelich, maybe Garrett Mitchell. And by the way, you got a Gold Glover in Sal Frelick who can play right field and swing the bat a little bit too.
Let's not forget that there's an injured Blake Perkins out there too. I mean, like, come on, we've got depth for days.
Yeah, and he's a good piece. He showed that last year for sure. So it's a strong outfield. Before we even really get too much into Churio,
I'm just gonna read this real quick just to solidify the point I just made. 353 average, 389 OBP, 1.124 OPS. Christian Yelich's spring trading statistics. He had 3 big bombs, and they were monsters. In 34 at bats, 12 hits, 11 RBIs. I felt like he had more home runs than that, so that's not as impressive. But I was still pretty excited to hear him. Maybe he just had a stretch where I was listening every day, and it was those 3 days that he hit home runs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, same here. I think when you start stacking up the lineup, like we talked about Contreras and Yelich, Churio, Hoskins, it doesn't look like.
And what about Churio?
Yeah. What about Churio? I mean, we saw what he did last year in the second half. I don't know if it's outrageous to say he's going to play like that for the whole season. I've heard people say he's going to play better, and I think both could happen. Baseball Reference has got him putting up a similar season, which, by the way, at his age is not a bad season.
No, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, 20 home runs, speed, defense, hitting 275. I mean, that's a phenomenal season if he does what he did last year over the course of the season. But that's definitely not the cap to the season that he could have this year.
Right. Well, and it was funny. So I was listening to Baseball Today this morning, and they were talking about the MVP race. And of course, you go to like your Shohei Ohtani because he's
good.
he's everything.
He's all right.
He's all in one. He's a jack of all trades. So by default, he kind of but they were saying, okay, if Shohei Ohtani misses significant time, we don't want that to happen. But knock on wood, who would be other candidates? And I was shocked to hear Jackson Churio's name in the conversation. I'm not shocked per se because I'm a Brewers fan and I watch it live, but I was, I guess, excited maybe that somebody on some form of national podcast spoke a Brewer's name out loud. And Baseball Today and John Boy are very good about giving us love. They are great at giving the Brewers love. If you want to hear a podcast that actually mentions the Brewers from time to time, that's one to check it out. Like on a national level.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jackson Churio. I mean, I look at he had that month. Remember that month last year where it was like, oh man, maybe they should send him down, give him some time down. And then he just sprung back from that.
But yeah, think about, he had basically 2 months where he was, he was figuring things out at the big league level. So you had 2 months of him more or less not providing much value in the lineup, and then Yelich was gone for a good chunk of the season. And so you combine the fact that you missed a good chunk of time from those two big bats that you should, ideally have if everything goes right this year. That's where I think you can start seeing, okay, we lost Willy Adames' production, which is a huge loss offensively and defensively. But on the offensive side, you start looking and saying, well, Churio's a full season, hopefully. Yelich, hopefully, we see a full season. And we see those guys play like they did last year. And Hoskins maybe takes a half step forward. Like I think it's a reasonable expectation to say we could have a similar offense. I'll say with the one asterisk on third base. That might be the one asterisk of
right.
What are we doing at third base? Are we making an addition? Is Oliver Dunn the next Bryce Terang? Something's got to happen there. But I see a way out where the Brewers have a similar offense. Dare I even say maybe a better one if we see some of the steps forward that we're hoping to see with Churio and Hoskins, and if Garrett Mitchell can keep it up. That's a big bat in the middle of the lineup too.
If Garrett Mitchell can play healthy and play to what his talent level is, I think he's gonna suit. It's gonna suit nicely for us because then you also have, that as a weapon. And at first when this offseason hit, I was kind of like, okay, how are they gonna make up for Willy Adames's production? You know what I mean? And honestly, I think it's all right there. I think the Brewers said, hey, look, we don't got to spend all the money. It's all right here. We just got to put it together.
It could happen. I could definitely see that happening.
And that, I mean, it's just, it's a lot of stuff has to go right for it to happen. But I mean, who's to say with this lineup? The other name I didn't mention was Isaac Collins is in the running there. But I think we're going to get Capra over Collins, in my opinion.
Yeah. I forget the count, but I think there's a chance that we can see both because of some of the injuries. Can't recall if both will be making it or if just one will, but probably, second last guy on the roster. And we always know we see a bit of a revolving door, not so much on the offensive side as we do on the pitching staff. But yeah,
right. Well, and I think it determines too. Like I think they have that one like you can flex, have an extra pitcher on the roster in the beginning versus whether you carry 13 in the arms versus. I think that's where it comes into. Because I think that's the one area that they like kind of have a choice, right? I just thought of something. I'm going to mention it mid-episode here. You're kind of giving me 2018 Keston Kira vibes with the mustache. I hope that's not embarrassing.
That's all right. Usually, David would get that comp, the Keston Kira comp. But yeah, I got the. That's true. I have not had that comparison yet. Although I'm not sure how many Milwaukee people remember Keston Hero, but that's all right.
Right. Blip on the radar. Blip on the radar. Starting pitching, I mean, that goes right down the line. Freddie, Nestor, Aaron Savali, Brandon Woodruff is probably borderline going to be. He might be up with the team, but not like active. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he'll be there, but he won't be. So then you're missing DL Hall, Aaron Ashby, Jose Quintana. I struggle with this one. Jose Quintana is the late ad. He's also, I think he's got some ramp up time yet. I don't know.
Yeah,
so that kind of hurts us a little bit, but
yeah. The rotation at the moment is about three men deep. So somebody call up CC Sabathia. We need at least a fourth guy to man that rotation long term. But I'm guessing we'll see a couple of lesser known names at the start of the year to fill out the rotation because, like you said, Woodruff won't be ready. I think there's just a question mark, not a firm timetable. But it'd be great to see him at least by May. So that's one arm, and like you said, Quintana, I think is an underrated pickup. The Brewers got him, especially for I was shocked at what they signed him for. The Brewers are always looking through and rummaging to find some good deals. I find it hard to believe the Brewers don't get a good deal on Quintana for what they paid him. I don't remember the terms specifically, but I like that addition a lot. We don't have usually
like
a lot
$5
of established
million,
veterans,
right?
Yeah.
4.5 or something like that. It's not a lot.
No, it wasn't a lot. Frankly, it's what I thought we were going to pay Colin Ray, and Quintana is definitely a better arm than Colin Ray. No shade to Colin Ray. I always enjoyed having him, and I would have liked to see him come back. But the Brewers almost never signed, as we know, a veteran starting pitcher out of free agency. And yeah, I think it's a good pickup. When we get healthy, the rotation looks pretty solid when you throw Brandon Woodruff, Jose Quintana, Tobias Myers. Some question marks still with DL Hall and Aaron Ashby and what kind of pitchers we get from them. But we also know what we're getting with, for the most part, with Freddie, Nestor Cortez, Aaron Savali. So there's a lot of consistency that the Brewers rotation has, which is something that you certainly can't take for granted.
And we just got to get there with those guys, I think. The meat and potatoes here, and we do have some guys coming up. Let's not forget Mizorowski, Chad Patrick, Logan Henderson. I mean, these are all guys that are on the upcoming. So they could be on their way to the show, maybe sooner rather than later. I know there was a sprinkling. We do this every year, and this goes into our next conversation, which is the bullpen. But we do this every year where there's a smattering of spot starts from random guys. Yeah, David would know the answers to this.
Yeah.
There was probably 5 random pitchers that did a spot start last year. I can't name them off. Tobias Myers turned into one.
Yeah,
Tobias Myers was nothing, and then he spot started and turned into half a season with the Crew. At the big league level. So.
Yeah,
who knows?
We'll see that. Oh yeah, we'll definitely. And it probably only take a week to see it because you think about the Brewers opening up the season in New York. They probably go with Freddie, Cortez, and Savali in game 1, 2, and 3 there. So the home opener, David was mentioning this to me when we were talking. He's like, the home opener might be Chad Patrick, Elvin Rodriguez, Tyler Alexander, Logan Henderson. I mean,
any one of those guys.
Yeah, but that might be the home opener that we see. So we might see it as early as really the first week of the season.
Which is wild. And we still got all the relievers too. So, I mean, I think we actually started a game with, he's not on the roster anymore, but it was that bigger fella last year. What was that guy's name? Bigger reliever.
Koenig and Hudson are both back this year.
I can't think of the guy's name. If it comes to me, I'll say it, but whatever.
David's smiling down right now. I guarantee you he's got it. He's got it right. He's ready for that.
Yeah. Trevor McGill, of course. Joel Piamps. Yep. Jared Koenig, look forward to see what he's got in store. I don't think that there is a lock on that closer position yet, because I think there's about 3 guys that are sitting here that could potentially take that job. Payams is another one. You know what I mean? Like, you never know where they're going to slot these guys in. Hudson, you mentioned, of course. Alexander Rodriguez, Connor Thompson, Elvis Perguro is returning. Chad Patrick and Abner Uribe are all names. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Abner never served his 7-game suspension. So I don't see it as wise if he's got an option and we're short-handed. You can't fill his spot when he's on a suspension. So it would not be smart to start him with the team.
Yeah, he's got a 4-game suspension.
It was reduced, right?
Yeah. So he's got a 4-game suspension waiting for him as soon as he is on the active roster. The only way it could make some sense is the Brewers do have those 3 games lined up well, of course, with Freddie, Cortez, and Savale. So maybe the Brewers are willing to take that hit.
Oh, yeah.
A 4-game suspension. But you're right. If he doesn't have that, I think he's a lock to make the roster. I think we probably still see him. I don't know. It depends a little bit what they want to do with those 2 starts and those first 2 starts at home, games 4 and 5 to open the season, and who they're going to go to, and whether they still have adequate bullpen depth. But you're right. There's definitely we know there's some good arms there. The Brewers have had the second best ERA, bullpen ERA, in all of baseball 2 years in a row. And we certainly can't forget we had Devin Williams each of the last 2 seasons, and he is absent on the roster here in the bullpen for the first time. And so that is going to be a loss. But you're right. There's still a lot of talent in the bullpen. Brian Hudson's probably another intriguing one. We all know what he did last year, but we also know he got a little bit just kind of overworked, and we saw that play out for him at the end of the season. I definitely felt for him, with the success he had through the year, to not really be a difference maker as the Brewers close the end of the season. So we'll see how they handle him and whether he's able to have continued success like he had last year. I mean, he carried the Brewers in a lot of ways early in the season. They wouldn't have been where they were at the end of the season if it wasn't for him carrying a heavy load early in the season. So we'll see if he can continue to put up good numbers, and maybe the Brewers work him a little bit less to be able to get a good Brian Hudson through the whole season.
What's your thoughts on the yo-yo and the new Airbender 2.0? Did you see him? Did you get to see did you see the clip, or did you see the live game footage of him pitching?
Yeah, I saw the clip. of Yoho, and if there's an Airbender 2.0, it seems like it's got to be him.
They were jokingly, and I said the yo-yo because that's what they were jokingly calling it on the broadcast. I think Sophia Minert actually mentioned that, so it was really kind of funny. I was like, "Ooh, I like that name. That's a cool name for it." But that's another guy that's in the wings that I don't know if he'll crack this opening day roster, but he's definitely a weapon that they could use.
Yeah. I know they've reassigned him to minor league camp, so he won't be cracking the major league roster, rather. But we are absolutely going to see him. I feel like it's been a long time that we've been saying we're going to see him soon, and we still haven't seen him. So same goes for Mizorowski, but I think it's pretty clear that Yoho's probably the more polished guy, but a little bit less upside, of course, than Mizorowski might have. There's still question marks on whether he could be a starter. But yeah, we've got to see Craig Yoho this year. I don't see how we don't see him in some capacity this year. And I think you can't sleep on him. Remember Abner Uribe coming onto the scene. We didn't have really high expectations for him, young guy, and he had a good amount of success early on. It's definitely not out of the question that we see him first onto the scene and make a difference quickly. One other guy we haven't mentioned is Nick Mears.
Nick Mears.
But I was talking to Kurt Hogue of the Journal Sentinel earlier in the offseason, and he said his pick for the closer long term, like later in the season, is Nick Mears. He thinks that.
Wow.
Really like him
that's an interesting insight. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's a guy that we know the Brewers acquired him, and I know everybody was talking about all the analytics behind his pitches and the upside that he brought. We saw the Brewers go to him in that big game 3 against the Mets, and he was effective there, which was quite surprising they brought him in there. So don't sleep on Nick Mears. He's another guy that could make a big impact for the Brewers out of the pen.
When did Gasser have Tommy John?
He'll be back August, September of this year.
Oh, so late year. It's going to be a late year thing. Okay,
it'll be a late year. Yep.
I didn't remember when he had it. That's why I forgot about the Tommy John that he had. I was going to say, and it could happen with any one of these guys. I guess if we're talking about Mizorowski, your Gasser, or any of these guys could turn into a valuable long reliever too. I remember Hader was slated as a starting pitcher when he was first talked about. And then they transitioned him through whatever magic the Brewers pull with this pitching lab that they have. They tend to put these guys in roles that suit them. I mean, I don't think we have back-to-back reliever of the year all-star closers without this pitching lab. So they've already got to figure it out who's that guy. And if Kurt Hogan's saying it might be Nick Mears, it might be him. He might know something on us.
He very well might. He very well might. And like you said, the Brewers are that's been, they've had a lot of things that have gone their way in terms of player development, but I don't think it's a fluke, and we've seen it happen time and time again for the Brewers, and that's been one of their biggest, if not the biggest, key to their success. Besides, of course, some young talent that's come along the way and some good moves, getting William Contreras, and but that's certainly been a big one. Is been continuing to develop pitchers, and we'll see if they can continue to replicate it with Yoho and Mizorowski. Probably Mizorowski's the big one, because that kind of the sky's the limit for a guy with his stuff. But you also know that it's not a lock that he's going to be an everyday starting pitcher. He really may end up being more of a bullpen arm, which might be a little bit disappointing, but he's still got a ton of potential, crazy good stuff, and he's still young.
Yeah, and I mean that seems to be the potential upside of all of these guys is they're still young. The only real old dogs out here are our main core of starters, which is fine. We'll let the youth marinate a little bit, which we seem to be pretty good at doing as of lately. At least as long as we've been covering the crew, they've been marinating young players at a good rate. So it's good to say, like, we can look at this roster and still have a lot of confidence, even losing a piece like a Willy Adames and Corbin Burns before that, and Devin Williams as well. We can still have a lot of confidence because what they've been able to produce out of these teams. Do you have any final thoughts on the roster or anybody you might want to mention that we may have forgot along the way?
No, I think we covered pretty much everybody. I think biggest question I've got, besides some of the step forwards we're going to be looking for, is third base. What do we see from third base in the Brewers? Are they willing to pull the trigger on a midseason move if Oliver Dunn doesn't pull off the next Bryce Terang leap forward?
Right. I mean, yeah. Does Ollie Dunn shock us, or do we go a different route? I have to say, though, like, in years, I did not have the confidence in the third base. So that's always kind of been remember, it was first and third for a very long while. First was never consistent. Shout out Rowdy Tellez. The other big guy. What's the other big man? Oh, man.
Yes.
I lost it. Pirate guy. Oh. Vogelbach, yes.
Vogie.
We had some shake up there. Eric Thames, Jesus Aguilar. And there's a lot of pitchers, or not pitchers, prospects down the line that are like shortstops. If you didn't notice that, I was like, shortstop seems to be the most popular prospect that we have. Because isn't correct me? I said Jesus made Jesus Made.
Yep.
I think I got that right this time.
There we go.
So I mean, there's a lot down the line, so we'll see where those all come out. One final piece that I did want to talk about today, and I wanted to specifically speak it at you because I know your affinity and your understanding and love for our club, and I also know that we're in a situation right now. We're on the cusp of. You mentioned it early on, and I thought it was funny that you mentioned this, that your friend signed up for, or your associate, whoever it was, signed up for Brewers streaming. We're on the cusp of this streaming world gone awry. I listened to a show this morning that was talking about that Manfred is trying to get all the deals to work out to the start, to basically all the national deals and all the local deals end at the same time so he can sell MLB as a package. Now, we know the NFL has had a long-standing good thing with streaming going on. And I know that the NBA has worked out some things. MLS has worked out some different contracts and some deals. Baseball just hasn't had that. And I think that's affected the product really badly. Especially for us, and teams like us, the lower echelon, not the Yankees, not the Dodgers, not the Red Sox, not these big markets. They lost the Sunday Night Baseball deal going in for 26. I'm sure you are well aware of that. How do you feel? Like, do you feel that's capped us as far as the talent we've been able to acquire, and that's why we've tried to build within? Is it, do you think it's the money?
It's a good question. I think with the Brewers, it's tough, right? Because Brewers fans can tell you it happened. We saw that before some of these changes in the last couple of years. That's been the latest reason for why the Brewers haven't been spending more money. And there is obviously a reality to that. We all know that sports teams are a business. Some make money, some don't make money. But at the end of the day, they're still a business. So, I do think it definitely plays into it. The Brewers, of course, are at a distinct advantage. I forget if they're the smallest or the second smallest in terms of TV deal across all of baseball. So they're definitely impacted by that. So I would say, I think it's definitely hurt to some degree. I don't know. I guess I haven't noticed a huge difference. Payroll is down, I think, over that time period, over the last couple of years. So, I think it is impacting it to some degree. The Brewers have been able to just brush that aside and continue to win divisions. And kind of the trend of that. How long they can continue that is obviously a question, but it's certainly, when I look and see the Brewers projected by Fangraphs to have, like basically 81 wins, I'll take the over on that any day of the week. If you're telling me that the Brewers team is not a 500 team, I have a hard time believing that unless, we see Yelich go down for the year and another major injury or something along those lines. I have a hard time believing that they're not going to be able to continue to buck that trend with the talent they have to be an above 500 team.
I keep saying it, and I'll continue to say, what did the Cubs, the Cardinals? I mean, you could add all the players that all of the teams below us got. I don't think it competes with what we've already had. The established stars and the unestablished stars that we have on our roster, the stars that are going to make that next step this year, it doesn't compete with their additions. I mean, Kyle Tucker is not going to change the Cubs into a world. If you watch those first two games, the Cubs were flat. They were very flat. So the other thing alongside of this conversation, though, is the TV rights deals. And then there's also the conversation of the salary cap and the salary floor. Now, you already mentioned they've always kind of operated this way, though. This has always kind of been the MO as our time as Brewers fans. Would that change? Do you think that there's going to be more free money, loose money with a deal, or do you think it's going to take a salary floor to make the Brewers spend more money? Because that's conversation that's being had right now.
Yeah, I don't think the Brewers would get impacted that much by either of those. I don't know. Of course, it depends where I guess the floor stands. If they're going to force the Brewers to spend more money, then of course that would impact them. But otherwise, the salary cap, we all know Dodgers payroll is I think over $300 million, and they've got a team that's all right. I mean, I'm confident the Brewers find their way to the playoffs. But it's another question to talk about whether or not they can take down the Dodgers, even the Braves. Braves are going to be a really good team. So there's definitely going to be good competition in the National League. And part of that does have to do with no salary cap. And so that'll, I'm sure, be, as always, a contentious issue when the new collective bargaining agreement has to be agreed upon. It's not until the end of 2026. So we've got 2 seasons before that has to be agreed upon. But, yeah, I think it could impact the Brewers. But for the most part, like you said, the Brewers kind of do what the Brewers do. If the new rules allow them to continue to do that, I think we see that. Do I expect that, MLB changing rules, all of a sudden we start seeing the Brewers signing a bunch of free agents to 3-year, 5-year, 7-year deals? No, I don't, regardless of what the rules are. Like you said, the Brewers have never been really a team to do that, with the exception of, trying to extend some of the guys that they've got, or occasionally for a guy they think is a good deal might commit to some money. But I don't think we see a big difference in that, especially as we see the younger stars, like you said, continue to age up. We know that also comes with arbitration money, and the Brewers having to pay more for those players as they continue to age as well. So I think that would also be on the Brewers front office's mind, is continuing to make sure they can pay Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick, Churio's, of course, already locked in, maybe other young players. Is that something that is always front of mind for those young guys who put up good numbers, put up good years? They're going to, rightly so, want to get paid for the value they're adding to the team.
All right. As I like to do when you come on my show, I know David is the trivia guy, but I want you to name. Okay, so where did your fandom start?
So
give me a range that you can remember, and then we'll gauge how I ask the question.
So I was born in 1998. So I was 10. I was 10 years old when 2008 happened. So that was really, I remember just a little bit from maybe 06, 07 probably was really more so the start. But 08, 08, because of the season, of course, the Brewers had was, I would say, really the start. And that probably was for David and I. David would have been 6, but David, he remembers it better than I do.
Okay. Do you know the pitcher with the most opening day starts for the Milwaukee Brewers?
Is that Gallardo?
It is actually, you were close. Gallardo is at 5. I should clarify this question. So just most opening day starts is Sheets.
Okay.
Most consecutive is Gallardo.
Okay.
So Sheets has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But not consecutive, because Davis, believe it or not, got a start in there. I don't know if Davis.
Doug Davis.
Oh no, he pitched through what, 9 maybe, 8, 9, somewhere in there. 09. This one will shock you though. Do you have any idea who the opening day starter for the Milwaukee Brewers was in 2009?
2009.
Not well liked.
09. That was a little early.
I was gonna say you're
Randy Wolf?
Jeff Suppan.
Suppan. There we go.
That's wild to me. I didn't know he started an opening day for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah. It was wild to me how good he was before he was on the Brewers. Because I only knew him as
bad as he was. You're like, why do we have this guy? Oh,
yeah.
Wait, he actually was really good at one point, and somehow we got him. Burnitz. Oh, not what am I saying? Burnitz as the most starts as a right fielder. Braun, obviously, left field. Then you're looking at Lucroy at catcher. Yeah, Luke Rowe beats them all. Fielder, first base. Weeks, second base. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Those are some consistent names. Ooh, hot contest between, believe it or not, Ramirez. I really forgot the amount of time that Ramirez was actually on the, or Ramos Ramirez was actually on the crew.
Yeah.
He had 1, 2, 3, 4 opening days to Cirillo's 4 opening days from 95 on. So basically your lifetime. I didn't go all the way back. I could have gone all the way back, but obviously then you're looking at Surhoff, Cooper, you know. I'm talking your era of baseball.
Fair enough. Well, we gotta. David would always, and I would always joke. We always have to at least have mention. You got to mention at least 182 player on every episode. That's a prerequisite for any Brewers.
Prerequisite. Okay, so if we go to 82, do you know who the starter was on opening day in 1982? I don't.
Ooh. Caldwell.
I wasn't born yet then.
Vukovic.
Vukovic is correct.
Okay.
It's funny to go back.
Oh, go ahead.
It's funny to go back and look at those things. Random stuff.
It is. Did you get a chance to? I imagine you did watch just a bit outside.
Actually, so I bought the DVD. I'm so terrible. I bought the DVD after I listened to your podcast about it. Because you guys had the director on, right?
Yeah.
Or the guy who made it. And I bought the DVD when it came available on Amazon. It is literally sitting down because I don't have like DVD players regularly on every TV in my home anymore. I have an Xbox downstairs that plays DVDs. So I have yet to watch it, but I have it. I took the plastic off. It's just not in the player yet. So hopefully before opening day, I can pop that in.
That's your homework. I know you got nothing else better to do, but well worth it. It's coming to Roku streaming for those that do want to check it out. That didn't watch it in theaters and didn't buy the DVD. It's coming out on Roku streaming. I don't have the date exactly, but I did see.
That's Kelly awesome. I did see something about that, but I didn't remember. So, all right, man. Hey, it was good to chat. We went for a full hour.
It was good.
All right. So, guys, that was the Miller Park Minute. This is Eric Agnew. As always, go Brewers. We are excited to get this season started. We are going to pop a bunch more episodes in the coming days. So be prepared. It's going to be Miller Park Minute overload. Peter, thank you so much for coming along for today's journey. As always, go Brewers, and we will see you in the next episode. Oh, it won't let me do that.